Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Michael Chandler with a beautiful shot. Dan Hooker is down and he is hurt.
Oh!
Okay.
Chandler's got him rocked. Chandler might TKO. Wow! What a debut by Michael Chandler. UFC lightweight. Holy smokes! Wow!
He just flatlined it with the right hand.
Herb Dean, come on, man!
Masvidal's out.
Oh boy!
Wow.
That was an Askren level finish. Oh, he knocks him down.
Backhand by Francis. He's got him hurt.
He's going after the finish.
boy.
Big uppercut from Ngannou. Stipe engages.
Stipe hurt him.
Oh, he dropped him. Ngannou's your champion.
Wow.
Francis Ngannou's the heavyweight champion.
Stipe cold.
Wow! What a finish, man! 9-1 on the night. 8-2 in the question mark kicks parlay hit. Fight Night Picks. Wow!
Wow.
Francis Ngannou. Holy smokes! Oh man, give him the stool.
Who knew Patient Francis? A scary man.
Let's get into it. Wow!
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
And just like that, we are live and getting set for UFC 262. As always, one half your hosting duo, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. And with me, to my left, to your right, as always, one half of the duo, Matt Allen. You can find him on the respective socials at Matt Allen FNP. And Matt Allen, I've had to be wearing the specs because, listen, it's hard to find winners on this card. It's straight up a really difficult one. I can't wait to get your thoughts, but listen, I love the energy that we have over in the chat. Real News MMA's hanging out. Nicholas Lamb. We got Laos Nan. We got Phoenix over there as well. Caitlin Lockhart saying, no way in hell Chandler wins by decision. But Matt, I love this card. It really is hard to pick some winners here.
Here's a bit of a hot take. I'm way more excited about the pay-per-view we have tonight than I was for the last pay-per-view we had. I understand, yeah, Jorge Masvidal is a big star. Yes, there were 3 title fights on that card. I wasn't nearly as excited for any of those title fights as I am for tonight's main event. I don't care if you like Charles Oliveira or Michael Chandler, if you're a fan of either one of those fighters, but just those two, I guess, athletes as skill sets is one of the most exciting fights the UFC's been able to put on in a very long time, and I could not be more excited.
Big Martin Morrison over in the chat saying love from the northeast of England, boys. Gazbach is hanging out, and Mike Nelson as well saying agreed. Smash the like button. Listen, love this card. If you had the chance to see that funky intro, we're gonna have the Fight Companion tonight live for the main card. We flip it on over to, well, the other side of the small office, and we get to follow along. So if you want to hang out and tune into that, we'll be going live with the main card. Hit the sub, hit the like as we get set for this card. But Matt, with question mark kicks, what we always do, we go top to bottom through the entire card. Now last weekend, bit of a weird one. We both went 5 and 4. If you look at the question mark kicks parlay, it did not hit. I had, of course, and it was tricky, had Jin Young Park to beat Tafon Chukwe at the start of the week. Then I changed my mind and threw in Chukwe into the question mark kicks parlay, but it was tricky. And listen, like I said, this weekend is 2, but we'll flip it on over to our picks 4 fight of the night before we go too far. As always, the fight of the night screen presented by Manscaped. Matt, how could you not have Burgos and Barboza as one of those two?
Shane Burgos might be the most excited person in the face of the world for this fight, and that's the most exciting thing about it. Like, you like that the fighters themselves are excited for the matchup, but when you hear Shane Burgos talk, like, hey, this is the one, like, I knew when the matchmakers gave me Edson Barboza, like, this is the fight that's going to be fight of the year. That just makes you know that it's going to be an absolutely insane fight. Edson Barboza, one of the best strikers really in the history of MMA, and I feel like that's safe to say, against Shane Burgos, who's so good at boxing. I don't know how this fight can't deliver.
And Billy Slop saying 75K in bonuses. One of these two guys, there's a great opportunity for finish, but if they don't, they're probably both going to earn 75 in the fight of the night. And then if we flip it on over to our second pick, Matt, your co-main event, T-Ferg taking on Benny and the Jets. We got Beneil Dariush taking on Tony Ferguson. Absolutely love the matchup. Tony Ferguson, hopefully he's invested a little bit more in the jiu-jitsu for this fight than he did his last fight, but I absolutely love it. And Matt, over in the comments section, a lot of hype over from Wisconsin, but as well, the Ontario crew tuning in, fellow Canadians.
Yeah, it should be a really good fight. Not to put aside the Canadians, but just end on this fight. It's such a great fight. Because Tony Ferguson, I don't know if he's been the most Tony Ferguson this week that he has been in a while, but it seems like he's just turned the Tony Ferguson-ness up to about 100. Because he's, I don't know, bragging, if you will, about breaking his students' ribs. Don't know if I'd be bragging about that. But it's just been a really fun build-up to this fight. I think it'll be an absolutely wild fight, too, because it's weird. These guys' personalities completely clash. Benny's real laid back, just likes to have a good time. Tony Ferguson, very wired, so I couldn't be more excited for this co-main event.
Absolutely love that fight as well, Matt. And as always, our Fight in the Night screen presented by Manscaped. You can head on over to their website. It's manscaped.com. Use promo code FMP. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping with your order. And listen, I have Fredericton's Vertiball. I don't just talk about it. I actually do use it. They're quite good things. And listen, our sponsors support us. You support us as well. And you can hit up that super chat if you want to support the boys. We would certainly appreciate it. Because, as always, that live chat gets moving very, very quick. I see Eric Chavez saying Ferguson or Dariush in my DraftKings lineup. Not a DraftKings expert. Who's going to score more points there? That's a tricky one. OJ is saying Tony is a lock. And Leo is saying Ferguson stock is a must sell. Matthew Moore is saying, love the content. Guys, everyone who's here should start hitting the like button right away. So like I said, that live chat gets moving very quickly. Yeah, over 300 just for the start of the show. And again, last point we have before we go all the way through this. If you have the chance, at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, that's where I'm going to be referencing the votes for these fights. We throw them there in our story, so you can vote on them. We're going to be going through those. And Matt, like I said, this is an absolutely wild card. And we start with a couple of fighters who have each had separate stints, 2 separate stints in the UFC. The returning fighter, Sean Soriano, a teammate of Michael Chandler, who's in your main event, coming out of Stanford MMA. But he was a big Black Zillions guy for the longest time. They always said he was that guy that was going to break through, that was going to go all the way to the top. It was just unfortunate that his UFC debut was a co-main event against Kawajiri, who was 35, from Japan, fighting in the first time in Singapore. It was the first UFC Singapore card. That was crazy. Obviously, Kawajiri wins the fight. Sean Soriano ultimately goes 0-3 in the UFC. But you look at the names. Pretty big names that they had him up against at that time, too. He was able to kind of take his lumps on the regional scene, so to speak, come back, make his mark, and he's looked really good lately. And for Christos Giagos, this is a guy that we talked about it. Is the cardio the best? Not necessarily. When you're giving up a third round to Mizuto Hirota, I don't love that.
I get nervous.
Same thing with Carlton Minus, albeit that was at short notice, up a little bit in weight. Both guys making weight successfully for this one. Both of them at 156. Love to see that. OJ is saying Iagos 29-28. And Naveed talking about the presser. Matt, I absolutely love this fight. I think this is going to be fireworks to start the card. I think people are going to get excited about this. Almost like where we had, who was it not that long ago? Na Liang taking on Ariane Carnelosi to start UFC 261. This is a great fight to get it started off, and I love it.
So I saw someone in the chat there say the fans are going to play a part into these fights. They will, I think, to a certain degree, because the last pay-per-view was the first time that there was sold-out attendance and everything, and it did feel like every single fighter on that card, you could tell, was just amped to go from the beginning. And that was that Carnelosi fight. That kind of shows that, yeah, from the first fight on, you could just tell that the energy is going to be there in the arena. Here's the thing about Christos Giagos. He kind of is the ultimate 29-28 fighter, unless he does win by submission. That's his problem. he's just so good for those 2 rounds that it's almost by defect he has to be bad in that 3rd round. But that's always what you have to ask yourself when you're looking at Iagos' fight. Can he either win by submission early on, or can he at least control enough of the fight to where I'm comfortable with him just kind of coasting in that 3rd round? I think he can get away with that against a guy like Sean Soriano. You bring it up. Sean Soriano fought Charles Rosa, he fought Chaz Skelly, and he fought Mizuto Hirota. Kawajiri. Sorry. Those are 3 very difficult fighters to go back to back against. Like, if you lost to those 3 guys throughout your career, no one would bat an eye at it. It's just the fact that they were back to back makes it look so much worse. But the one thing that all 3 of those guys have in common with Christos Giagos is they can be that heavy kind of grappling style fighter, and that's why I think Giagos can be able to win this fight.
Now, the trouble is, I mean, that one was years ago when he did make his mark. He's since gone back, like I said, on the regional scene. And for Sean Soriano, you look at it right now, he's on a 3-fight win streak, able to get wins over Saul Almeida, knocked him out, Jose Marshall by decision, and then Noad Lahat, UFC vet. And that wasn't that long ago, a month and 2 weeks ago. He knocked him out over with UAE Warriors. For Christos Giagos, 3-2 in his 5 on in. The losses to Jacare Close and Charles Oliveira, your champ. I have a hard time, and I had a hard time at the start of the week because Iagos about a -200 favorite or thereabouts. Sean Soriano coming back at a +175. If you love Sean Soriano, maybe you do see some value on him. Again, you look at the line movement this week. This fight isn't one that was overly heavily bet. Sean Soriano at about a 3% clip he was able to gain all week. I was kind of hoping we'd see a little bit more on that line. And there's, a couple of comments out there, pop and popcorn. This is a pop and popcorn fight for me. I will switch, though, again, with Iagos, where he goes so quick, hot and heavy early on in the 1st round and the 2nd round. I think if Iagos is able to get those first 2, he should be able to cruise to a decision win. So I'll side with you. I do like Christos Giagos in this fight. You're sticking with Giagos, right? I know Scarecrow saying, Craig, tell me you're still leaning Soriano. I have a really hard time here.
I said at the start of the week that you were probably going to switch this pick. Christos Giagos, he's A, way bigger, and B, if you lose to guys like Jacare Close, and pardon the pun, but in a very close fight, then you're going to beat guys like Sean Soriano. I think it's going to be enough for Giagos. I don't think Giagos can go out there and beat top 15 guys in the lightweight division. That's because the lightweight division's so good. Actually, Christos Giagos is a half-decent fighter. I just think that cardio is such a big liability that those top-tier fighters can make that a really big hurdle for him. I just don't think Sean Soriano is going to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it at Fight Night Picks, there's a large majority that are going with Iagos. 69% Iagos to 31%. Going with the man himself, Sean Soriano. And then over there in the comments section, Dimitar Belchev saying, can we do the entire fight companion for the 6.5 hours? If people tuned in, we would, but it's
hard to keep a high energy for 6.5 hours. I will admit that.
We used to do it years ago, and not a lot of people watch. Matt, all right, next one. We've got Kevin Aguilar taking on Tucker Lutz, and this was an interesting one. People were a little bit critical. They said, boys, this is a featherweight fight, and it is. Now, at the start of the week, it was kind of billed as lightweight. You looked at it on the UFC website, you looked at it elsewhere. Seemed like it was going to be at lightweight for Kevin Aguilar. He did have his last fight at lightweight. For Tucker Lutz, he hasn't fought at featherweight in a few years, and that's the thing. I mean, Lutz, if you look at it at his amateur career, he was undefeated, lost his pro debut, and then since then, 11 in a row. But it has been a few years since Tucker Lutz moved down to 145. You look at him on the scale, you look at him standing next to Aguilar, Lutz looks like a quite bigger guy. The trouble for me with this fight, again, what's Kevin Aguilar going to do to beat Tucker Lutz? I think there's going to be pressure. I think he's going to try and implement a little bit of the grappling. For Tucker Lutz, it's pretty well the same thing. So over in the comments section, Caitlin's got Tucker. Trevor Byers has got Tucker Lutz. Voodoo saying, I would tune in. Love you, boys. And Bailey Ripplinger saying, Mizzou, stand up. So we got this one. Seems like a lot of people are going with Tucker Lutz in this fight. Like to get your thoughts here.
I slightly edged the other way. I do think Kevin Aguilar is going to get back on track. And it's nothing against Tucker Lutz. It's just none of those wins are against that high level of competition. And that is a big problem. Like, we see this a lot where fighters can just dominate a bunch of guys who are like 1-1 on the regional scene. Then they actually get to the UFC and they start fighting guys who, yes, they might be losing to UFC level competition, but they would also be able to go out there and beat those guys on the regional scene. So it's not even that I love the game of Aguilar. It's just I think he's going to be able to do enough to beat Lutz. But I cannot say this enough. This is a fight that is completely off my card.
Yeah, I mean, Killer Trim official saying Aguilar gets caught slipping in the second round. I could see that, but the trouble for me is, Lutz's career up to this point, his pro fights, 59-52, the combined record. It's kind of like Jordan Wright's record, which scares me a little bit. But yeah, I am ever so slightly going with Kevin Aguilar as well, who is the underdog in this fight. If you look at the line right now, Lutz gained a little bit this week. He opened at a -110. He's now a -127 for Kevin Aguilar. Open -110. He's a +105. And if we have a look at Fight Night Picks for the total votes, 60% going with Tucker Lutz. So it seems like the gamblers are going Lutz. It seems like the fans are going Lutz. We're going against it, but that's all right. Aguilar looks, I'm assuming, like a small guy too. Takedowns by Lutz. We could see that too. Choi B. MMA dissing. Lutz has no striking defense. We'll see what happens in this one. Justin Valencia, I'm just trying to fool people with the glasses. That's all I'm doing. But I do like this fight, and I think, is Tucker Lutz kind of like the next Kevin Aguilar? We'll find that out, but Aguilar, the former...
the next guy was going to go on a 3-fight losing streak? I'll be honest, guys. This isn't the fight that I'm like, this is the one I really like on the whole entire card.
I'm looking forward to it, though. Matt, our next fight, we have Gina Mazany taking on Priscila Cachoeira, and really the conversation was, for Gina Mazany, 135er, took on a really high-level competition, didn't necessarily beat those fighters, but then when she moved to 125 and she fought poor old, at the time, what was she, 500, Rachel Ostovich?
I think so.
Physically looked great at 125. Looked great on the scales this time. Muscular, too. Taking on Priscila Cachoeira, who was originally supposed to fight back on the Halloween card. That was Uriah Hall and Anderson Silva. Probably his last MMA fight. How crazy is that?
You would think.
But for Cachoeira, wasn't able to make the weight. The weight cut was an issue. She pulled out, and now she's here. Looked good at 126. They both did. I'm really eager to see this fight because Cachoeira, I'm going to strike you. I'm going to try and knock you out. Gina Mazany, I'm going to try and wrestle you. This is a classic clash of styles.
And I think Cachoeira has enough power to knock out Mazany if she does catch her clean. That's the really fun thing about this fight, because for as good as Gina Mazany's ground and pound is, and for as smothering as her wrestling can be, her striking defense is god-awful. It really is. And Priscila Cachoeira is the type of fighter who can really take advantage of those miscalculations. So I actually think this is a very winnable fight for Priscila, and I kind of feel bad for her, because everyone just remembers her as that fighter who got absolutely railroaded by Valentina Shevchenko, but I think there's still a decent fighter there. I understand her big wins are over like Shayna Dobson, but still, when you look at the big wins of Gina Mazany, it's over the likes of Rachel Ostovich. So again, neither one of these two have really been able to beat that top tier fighter. So it will be a great fight, I think, to at least put them the next step closer to that top 15 at 125, which is a very wide open division. My issue is that I've seen Priscilla get taken down by primary boxers, and the fact that Gina Mazany is a very well-rounded martial artist, and the fact that at 125, she's just so much bigger than the majority of the women who she's out there fighting. I like Gina Mazany quite a bit in this fight.
Over in the comments section, Aaron, is it Teves or is it Tevez? You're saying this fight is the best one to run to the store if you need anything. Yeah, that's kind of tricky. I look at it, to me, there's not enough value with Gina Mazany. She's more than a 2-1 favorite, and I wouldn't feel confident putting the money into that one, so 65% of the fans at Fight Night Picks on Instagram have Mazany to get the win, and let's give an accurate number on it just so we can be there, because Priscila Cachoeira is the second biggest mover and shaker this week. 27% line movement for her. She opened a +250. She's now a +184. For Gina Mazany, she opened a heavy favorite, -300. She's now -227. To me, I wouldn't throw Gina Mazany there, but again, I talked about this at the start of the week. She's been working with James Gallagher and obviously James Krause over with Glory Fitness and MMA, with Tim Elliott, so on and so forth. Kettlebell! You got to go with kettlebell power. And Bailey Ripplinger that hit us up in the super chat, and we do appreciate you, Bailey. You're going all out with Mizzou. I'm assuming you always rooted for Tyron Woodley, but also for Ben Askren. Unfortunate the run those two guys have been on lately. All right, Matt, we'll move on. Our next fight is a tricky fight. We have Jordan Wright taking on Jamie Pickett. And for Jamie Pickett, it was 1 strike, 2 strike, and then, I don't know, like, they figured we got a 2-strike count here.
He had too much respect for the power of Tafon Chukway.
And then we're just going to throw, somebody else in there. They gave Jamie Pickett a bit of a lob ball, a lob toss with 2 strikes in his Contender Series, his 3rd time out there. He ends up hitting it off the tee, gets the win, fights Chukway, and like you said, a little bit too much respect. And when you see Jamie Pickett have a lot of success, what does he do? He blitzes forward. He puts it on the fighters taking on. For Jordan Wright, similar a little bit, not as much volume, but the guy definitely has the power. The trouble is he's had his chin checked by Fluffy Hernandez, and then his last time out against Joaquin Buckley. Now, For Buckley, yes. Did he lose to Alessio Di Chirico? Yeah, 100%. Who saw that coming? Not a lot of people, but...
And by jiu-jitsu math, Fluffy might be one of the greatest pound-for-pound grapplers, really, of all time.
That's true. So with this one, it is tricky. I see Gazbach over there saying, I had Pickett switch to Wright. Nakness, holy crow, is saying for sure Mikey's going to get popped early. Xavier, I've been trying to figure it out over there. Matt the Mick is saying pop and popcorn fun. That's what I'm thinking on this one. If I'm to the point at the start of the week where I'm fishing for under 2.5, you know it's a really hard time to try and pick the fight. But for Jamie Pickett, we've seen it. I saw it in the comments section out there this week, so tinfoil hat a little bit. But somebody said, I know Jamie Pickett well. He's going to add a different wrinkle to his game this time out. Watch out for that. So I'm assuming he's probably going to grapple if we're going by that logic. But he is taking on the Beverly Hills Ninja at the end of the day. So what are you ultimately thinking on this one?
I gotta be honest, I don't have a great read on this. Because with Jordan Wright, here's the thing. Is he a good fighter or is he not? And I know that's a big question to ask about somebody's career. But, like, I saw you fight Joaquin Buckley, who, yes, is a fast striker. But he completely dominated Jordan Wright. Like, I know everyone remembers Joaquin Buckley for the crazy knockout on Impic Sanganai, but his knockout over Wright was probably more disgusting, if anything. Like, he has him hurt. It was one of those weird kind of gross late stoppages, but Wright just looked terrible in that fight. And the fact that he was able to get hit so consistently, and he does just move backwards all the time, it makes me a little bit concerned. And it's not like Pickett's going to go out there and knock out with one shot. I just think if he can string together 2, 3, 4 strikes in this combination, he'll at least be able to win rounds. At the end of the day, I think that's what this fight's going to come down to. And I think Pickett can go out there and just win more rounds.
Why, Kenny, this fight not to go the distance is great. Parlay prop. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you wanted to go under 2.5.
So wait, what is your pick on this fight?
Well, let's just for just a second, let's go over there and have a look at it. Because I did pre-show, and it seemed kind of silly. You look at it, under 2.5 rounds. I said it was going to be, what, minus 185? It's minus 140 on 2 books, and it's minus 188 on another. So you're somewhere in the middle. I will go with Jamie Pickett just based on the pressure. Over in the comments section, Magic Musk saying, who are these guys? Nerd alert. You hit that one right on the head.
Yeah, we watched so many fights.
And yeah, you're never going to forget us now. But yeah, over in the comments section, Jack is saying, Wright Pickett is a fight between 2 names that will appear on the records of real fighters someday. Yikes. OJ saying Jordan Wright and KB Buller are the same type of fighter. Yikes. And I did see over in the comments section too, the Canadian, and, you know, they're billing him as the first Indian champ, Arjan Buller.
Look great.
Wow.
Brandon Vera getting TKO'd in a second.
And I gotta say something, for personal experience, Arjan Buller, very, very nice guy, very polite guy, and he knew New Brunswick quite a bit, so good for him. You love to see it, but yeah, both of us going with Jamie Pickett. I have a hard time with this one. If Wright catches him on the way in, maybe, but yeah, I'm going with Pickett. Scarecrow calling me out for that one, but
so we have the same pick on this.
We have the same pick on that one. Matt, we move into our next fight. Now, people were really critical where you said that Andrea Lee could outstrike Antonina Shevchenko in an MMA fight.
Guys, here's the problem. Andrea Lee is one of these fighters. I actually like that. I forget who said this. It was someone in Viviane Araujo's corner who was like, Katlyn Chookagian just knows how to win rounds. Like, they straight up said on one of the embedded. They were like, we realized she is very elusive throughout the first about 3.5 minutes of a round, and then she just throws a lot of volume near the end of the round, because that stays in the judge's mind, and she just figured out that, okay, I can win rounds that way. I'm not here to tell you that she's the better striker out of the two. I'm here to tell you that in a 5-minute period, she can look like the better striker to a judge. She likes to back up a lot, and she is the most hittable fighter. So if you're someone who is backing up a lot, who is just throwing a lot of volume, you can win rounds that way. I don't care if people are critical in the comments or not. Honestly, if Shevchenko is going to have success, I'd be surprised if she doesn't shoot 4 takedowns. We've seen Antonina off her back, not a great fighter, but in top position, she has good ground and pound, she has decent submissions. Like, there is a lot to like from the grappling of Shevchenko when she's in top position, but this is my whole point, and C-Mac, I'm about to get to what you just said. I don't think either one of these fighters are going to be in the top of the division anytime soon. I do see this as kind of like second-rate Katlyn Chookagian against second-rate Valentina Shevchenko. I just don't think either one of these two athletes are ever going to crack into that top 5. I do think Andrea Lee, though, is a fighter who can go out there and win rounds, to defend my previous point. But I think this should be an interesting fight at flyweight. I really do. I know Andrea Lee's on a 3-fight losing streak, but I do see her as a better fighter than her record shows, and I do think that one thing about Antonina Shevchenko is you can say she's overrated, it, but she does get better. Like, training with one of the best fighters at your weight class and going all over North America and finding new training partners, you're going to get better day in and day out, and I think that's a big advantage that Shevchenko has.
Tricky one, Cool Fire Gaming saying, let's get into it. Jack going with La Pantera. We had Vera is actually terrible. Andrea Lee eats ramen noodles. What else? Oh, Jace, you had something good up there, and I missed it. And Phoenix saying, how do you feel about Lee coming off a broken nose? The tricky thing with broken noses, and you saw that last weekend or a few weeks ago, Dominic Reyes, you break your nose once, and then you break it again, and then you break it a third time or a second time. Like, it's really tricky with those broken noses. And again, Andrea Lee to me, so you train primarily in Louisiana and Texas. Now you're training in Colorado full-time. You're working in some of the grappling. You're working in some of the takedowns. We've seen Antonina Shevchenko struggle with that, albeit it was Katlyn Chookagian. Like, that's kind of a big jump. I have a hard time with this one too, but to finally get to it, I mean, the total vote at Fight Night Picks on Instagram, 79% Shevchenko to 21% Lee. And if we have a look at the odds for this one, Shevchenko, the favorite, albeit slightly in this one. She's hanging around about a -121. She opened a -150. Andrea Lee has gained all week. Opened a +120. She's now at a +100. So, at the start of the week, I want to say we both had Shevchenko. Are you still feeling that way?
Ever so slightly, I'm going to side with Shevchenko. I think at range, Andrea Lee can have success, but I do think when this fight gets up close, when it is in the clinch, when it is on the mat, Shevchenko's just going to be the one who will be in the more dominant position throughout. So I do like Shevchenko ever so slightly in this fight.
It's really tricky. I've got Shevchenko as well. Matt, we have one of the busier episodes of Question Mark Kicks we've had in some time. Almost 1,000 tuning in. Only 135 likes. It takes 2 seconds. We would appreciate it. And Hot Dog saying, hey boys, can we get a shout out to my dog, Rocco? What was the Kayla Harrison, the interview that we had that one time?
Oh, okay, so Craig was interviewing Rocco, and then Kayla Harrison, maybe she had a beverage or two that day, which is in the background, like, Rocco! She was having a great time. No one was having more fun.
Next fight, we have Mike Grundy taking on Lando Vannata, and this is where, yikes, the Fight Night Picks Question Mark Kicks parlay kicks in, Matt. I have Mike Grundy to get the win, and I got him at a -115. That's where it starts. Grundy, Vannata. I mean, listen, you look at these two, and Lando Vannata, he's been in the UFC for some time. He's a much more recognizable fighter. He's going to have the crowd behind him. You know he will because A, American crowd and an American, but B, the 4 performance bonuses to start off, plus at the end, his last fight against Bobby Green in the rematch, another fight of the night. For Mike Grundy, he beat the hell out of Adnan Imani, and then he had an absolute scramble fest where you talk about injuries, he did kind of get hurt there, but in the fight that he had against Movsar Evloev, took him down 6 times. Love that fight. I love this fight too. I'm really eager to see it. What are you thinking?
If you can take down Movsar Evloev 6 times, imagine how many times you're going to be able to take down Lando Vannata. And I mean that seriously. Like, Lando Vannata, we talk about, yes, he's the more popular fighter, and he is one of those guys who, he was never in the rankings, but it always felt like he had a bigger fan base than almost he deserved. And I understand he had those crazy fights. Tony Ferguson, the Daniel Tabor fight was absolutely wild at UFC 209, but Lando Vannata hasn't gotten better since then, and that's my big issue. Lando Vannata today is still pretty much the same fighter that he was all that time ago. Yes, he wrestles a little bit more offensively, but on the other hand, he's a little bit less durable than he used to be. Now we see him get hit by shots that do put him down, where back then he'd get hit by it. Yeah, it might wobble him, but he'd at least still move forward. Bobby Green just boxed his ears in his last fight, and he did kind of wilt under that pressure. If you're a guy who, you know, like in Mike Grundy, if you're a guy who's so good at wrestling that you're using your pressure not with your stand-up, but with your ground game, I still think that Lando Vannata is going to wilt under that pressure. I think Lando Vannata, he'll have chances to catch him on the outside or coming in for the takedown, but at the end of the day, I like Mike Grundy quite a bit in this fight.
And the funny thing, I mean, you look at Mike Grundy, and again, we'll bring him back up, Canadian Arjan Buller, Commonwealth Games with his wrestling. Mike Grundy, sure. Commonwealth Games with the wrestling. So I do absolutely love this fight. Clay saying I don't see Vannata having any answer to what Grundy normally does. A lot of people were talking about the line on this one, and it is really close. Like I said, I got Mike Grundy at about a -115. He opened a -135, so Vannata has gained, opened a +115. He's a -107. But I do like Grundy with the wrestling. Lyle, likes Vannata as a dog. James Sturt saying any cancellations? I haven't seen any so far. Franklin saying the fact that Grundy's going to win by sub easily. So we'll see what happens there. But I do really like this fight. You know, you talk about wrestlers, scramble fest, what have you. Lando Vannata, is good in circumstances.
Yeah.
There's certain circumstances, but sometimes he can struggle a little bit. And at Fight Night Picks, 75% of the fans have Grundy to win. So I am going with Grundy. C-Max saying, is he going to get the submission? Listen, when I just go straight money line. So I'm going with Grundy there. But I'm holding a lot back this weekend because, again, for me, I'm just looking forward to the fights, popping popcorn. I mean, last weekend was a little tricky. After 2 really good weeks, Matt, our next fight, we have Jacare Souza taking on Andrea Muniz, and I can't wait to hear what people are thinking about this fight because, again, another really tricky one. Jacare is on a huge slide, and Muniz is really starting to win some big fights. I mean, the Araujo fight, the fight against Bartosz Fabinski, and if you look at it as far as action fighters, ground fighters, Bartosz, what does he normally do? Pounds the ever-living daylights out of people, or at least gets down.
Out of Terrence
judo. He has Gareth McLennan. That's another big Bartosz win. But I look at this fight, and I do have a little bit of a hard time just based on the fact that Jacare, against the good fighters, losing, and then against Kevin Holland. And a lot of people said, hey, Kevin Holland, very poor on the ground, but look what he did to Jacare. And I have a hard time putting those two together. But when I look at this fight, it is tricky because Muniz is on the rise, and Jacare is on a really tough slide.
The question you have to ask yourself is, how bad is Jacare's durability at this point of his career? Because if he just has no chin, like if his chin's to the point of Andre Arlovski, where if he gets hit clean, he is getting wobbled, then I'm a little bit worried about him in this fight. And I do think we can see one of his performances where Muniz might clip him. And I know this is wild to say, but if you get rocked with a shot, and Muniz is a third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, there could be a world where Jacare is in the position where he might get submitted. So really it comes down to how washed is Jacare? Because if Jacare is even 70% of what he once was, he should be able to win this fight. Jacare on the mat is legendary. There's a reason this guy's nickname has become his first name. Not a lot of people just walk around and people address them by their nickname. Jacare in the jiu-jitsu world is a legendary figure, and I don't think Andrea Muniz has the jiu-jitsu to be able to go out there and really dominate Jacare on the mat. I think Jacare can go out there and at least control Muniz, because the good thing about Jacare is he's not one of those jiu-jitsu practitioners who has a hard time getting takedowns. Jacare is a phenomenal wrestler, and he can offensively wrestle quite well. So I'm ever so slightly going to say that there is a little bit of sliver of Jacare left, that we were not going to see Ronaldo Souza tonight, so I'm going to stick with Jacare.
All right, Matt, over in the comments section, I got to go up to it because we had Branch Above was here every single week saying, I think Muniz takes the old man out. Hashtag Croc gets knocked out.
Wow.
If you start that hashtag trending, it could be a weird night, but we look at this one, Matt, at Fight Night Picks for the total votes. It's 67% Souza to 33% Muniz. And then if you have a look at the odds, I mean, we haven't seen a line like this in a Jacare fight in a bit, but Jacare open minus 120. He's minus 134 right now. For Muniz, open up a plus 100. He's at a plus 110. So if you really like Muniz, maybe go with him. I see a lot of people saying he has that reach advantage. He does tend to get backed up by strikers. Araujo, a guy that has some of the worst cardio I've ever seen at 185 pounds. And Bartosz Fabinski has one speed, it's go. But again, like we said, he could get caught in a defensive submission, and what did he do? He got caught in 2 of them. It's just he got out of 1 and he didn't get out of the second one. So you might like Muniz. I like Souza ever so slightly, but again, it's more pop and popcorn for me.
Yeah, same here. I do think Jacare will get this fight ever so slightly. And the real question is, what is next? Because this is a weird fight matchmaking-wise. Why is Muniz fighting Jacare? It's not like Muniz has this wide fan base that you're really trying to capitalize on. So for Jacare, I really do think matchups are key moving forward. So hopefully they do kind of, not a Legends division, if you will, but just give them those types of matchups moving forward.
All right, maybe we'll get a fight against Vitor Belfort sometime. Matt, let's kick off our main card to the pay-per-view. We have Matt Schnell taking on Rogerio Bontorin, and we were anticipating this fight would have been somewhere around 125. It was on short notice. Bontorin coming in, he just got knocked out a couple of months ago. He looked great, and then he got knocked out. Now this fight's at bantamweight. Bontorin missed weight at 137. There's so many question mark kicks around this one. It is really tricky. So again, you look at it, I mean, Bontorin, it's tough. And at the start of the week, this was the fight that people were DMing me about. Like, hey, what are you thinking about it? And I went, Schnell? And then when I did more research, I was with Schnell. The weight cut scares me even more for poor Bontorin.
Okay, this is my whole theory coming into this fight. How much of a training camp can you really have if you just got knocked out 2 months ago? Like, if you just got knocked out and knocked out really bad at that, you can't really train with any type of contact. You're not going to be able to spar at all, much less hard spar. So for Bontorin, I just really question what kind of training he has coming into this fight. And with Schnell, yes, I worry about his chin sometimes, but the majority of the time, he can stay on the outside. He's a highly accurate striker. I like Matt Schnell quite a bit in this fight. I thought this fight was going to be a very fun back and forth affair, but now I'm even more confident in Schnell. I thought he was going to win this fight. I'm not going to say he's going to dominate now all of a sudden, but I do really like Schnell. So if Schnell can keep this fight on the feet, or at least be the one getting the takedowns if it is on the mat, I think he can walk away with either a solid decision win, or he might even be able to go out there and get the finish, because Schnell's technique isn't that bad on the feet. I know his chin's not great, and if you fight a guy like Pantoja on the feet, listen, your chin's probably going to get checked at some point, but after his performance against Tyson Nam, I'm a lot more confident in Matt Schnell's game than I ever thought I would be.
Yikes. Matt going with Matt Schnell. I have Schnell as well. Again, straight from the outside. He's a taller guy. He's a longer guy. I think he's going to be able to get it done. It is a tricky fight because, again, for Bontorin, great ground fighter, pretty wild striker, but it's just, it hasn't really come together for him. If you want to see a fun Bontorin fight in the rearview mirror, go watch it against Bibulatov. That was a lot of fun. A guy that I wish we could see more often, but he's no longer with the company. Matt, our next fight. Shane Burgos, it's the Hurricane, and he's taking on Edson Barboza. I absolutely love this fight. It should be a great one because if you look at it for Shane Burgos, what a striker. Cardio is a weapon. Edson Barboza, one of the best strikers we've ever seen at lightweight. At featherweight, it's been so-so. He beat the piss out of Makwan Amirkhani, and then when he fought Dan Ige, it was like, well, he should have won, but he didn't. Matt, we have over 1,000 people tuning in right now, and I have to say, you guys are the best fans in all of MMA. You toss us a like, we'd certainly appreciate it, but I absolutely love this fight.
This fight's going to be wild. Again, every time I think about this, or really just tonight and how excited I am for this whole card, Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza is the first fight that I tend to think about because this is basically the fight we're going to get. One guy only boxes in MMA. The other guy only kickboxes in MMA. That's this fight. Now, yes, Edson Barboza is decent on the ground. Not in bottom position. We tend to see him get dominated there multiple times. But it's not like Shane Burgos, the guy, is going to go out there and be shooting for a lot of takedowns. And for Burgos, kind of a sneaky ground game. It's not something you see all that often, but if he is able to get on top, then normally he can get some good damage off.
Going over to the chat, Coolfire Gaming saying, I've got Barboza. I've got Barboza too, and I've actually got him on the question mark kicks parlay. So for me, I'm going into the plus. It's been chalky with question mark kicks parlay, but this time you got Grundy minus 115, you got Barboza plus 130. It evens out to plus 330 for that parlay. I'm not hitting it hard. I'll throw a little bit out of the rainy day fund. The $20. Let's go with that. And hey, you're going to be in the money if we're able to get the win. But it is a hard one. Rise and Chris saying it's a hard pick. And Mr. Moosey saying Barboza always gets robbed in decisions. Maybe it happened. But again, yeah, Shane Burgos, really good cardio. And like you were saying, sneaky ground game too.
He does, but this is the thing. We're not going to see either guy's ground game in this fight. And for Burgos, you kind of tip your hand early. But for Burgos, I don't really know how he's going to deal with the leg kicks of Edson Barboza. If I've seen him get leg kicked by the guys like Josh Emmett, and here's the weird thing about Burgos. Burgos is a guy who has really good offensive leg kicks, but doesn't check them at all. And when you're fighting Edson Barboza, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, does his opponent check leg kicks? Well, Shane Burgos not only doesn't check leg kicks, his whole offense is based around him being able to plant really hard on his feet. And the fact that Edson Barboza is not only one of the great kickers of our generation, just straight up strikers of our generation. I think on the inside, Edson Barboza can beat Shane Burgos. I think at range, he's going to be able to beat Burgos. And I see the conversation a lot is, if Burgos can just outlast or weather that storm of Edson Barboza has really, really good cardio. You have to remember, this is a guy who knocked out Dan Hooker with a spinning back kick to the body in the third round of a fight that he had historically high output in. So I don't think Edson Barboza is just a fighter who falls off the face of the earth in the third round. I think he's one of those weird fighters who, in the second round, you're going to look at Edson Barboza, he's going to be like this. But his output's going to be the same. His shots are still going to have a lot of power on the end of them. So I just like Burgos a lot in this fight. I think if he can take advantage of the body shots, take advantage of the leg kicks, he's going to be able to put it on Shane Burgos in this fight. But again, I could not be more excited for this fight. There's a reason we have this as one of our fight of the nights. It's not because we think this fight's just going to be a one-sided blowout from Edson Barboza. It's because Shane Burgos is going to get his own licks in this fight, and that's why I'm so excited for this matchup.
A lot of great comments over there. It seems like everybody's split. At Fight Night Picks on Instagram, they're split. 53% Barboza to 47% Burgos. Burgos the favorite. And there's the comments up there, and it's really hard to find them because they're moving so quick. But let's see. Kieran Scruff saying Burgos can negate the leg kicks with pressure like Gaethje did. Maybe end up with something like that. I absolutely love the fight. Like, I can't wait for this one. But I'm going with Barboza. Matt's got Barboza. And if you got Burgos, I mean, Good.
Then join us at, what time is the Fight Companion?
It starts at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Then join us at 10 p.m. Eastern so that you can watch our live reaction if you were right and we were wrong.
Matt Groidel, FNP in Vegas, rocking the shirt. We
Wow.
appreciate that. You can always find the merch at FightNightPicks.com. All sorts of great stuff over there. I ship it out as quick as I can. All right, Matt. Next fight, we have Katlyn Chookagian taking on Viviane Araujo. And it seems like Katlyn Chookagian's Twitter is non-existent anymore. She's had a rocky couple of days.
Wild, and some might say.
For Viviane Araujo, man, wow. Like, you think of a boxer. You think of somebody moving their head, creeping in, landing the power shots. Viviane Araujo is your gal, but sometimes she gets a little bit tired. And the trouble that I have is, if you watch Viviane Araujo, again, one of my favorite fighters at 125 pounds. I've let that be known in the past. But when I do look at her overall body of work, there's one fight that scares me off a little bit. It's a fight that she was ultimately able to win. It was the Alexis Davis fight where, listen, all right, first round, big round. Second round, all right. Alexis Davis always rallies and she makes it tough, and she made it tough in that fight. Now, Araujo won it, but Chookagian's one of those fighters. She's good moving forward. She's good moving backward. She's always, she's always landing something, so I'm sorry if that was too loud in your mics or in your ears. But, yeah. Matt Grudel. Apologies, Matt. Sorry. But, yeah, I like Chookagian in this fight.
Okay, so Katlyn Chookagian just knows how to win decisions. I know I brought it up before, but she does. She's great at just moving backwards and throwing a lot of strikes. And for Araujo, this is one of those classic Chookagian fights. It's like, can you knock out Katlyn Chookagian, or is she going to beat you by decision? And Araujo's a good striker. Like, she's going to be able to land good power shots. But you kind of gloss over the fact that she got beat by Jessica I by decision. Yes, she was able to beat Alexis Davis, but like Jessica I, just by moving forward on Araujo, was able to break up her timing. And that's the big problem with Araujo. She has to get into a rhythm for her to really get comfortable in a fight. If she's able to get confidence early on, and if she's able to land strikes, then yes, that second and third round are a really big problem. But if you're fighting a fighter like Katlyn Chookagian, who's always messing up your timing, who's always in and out and in and out, and you're constantly missing them, I don't care what she's been watching on Twitter or what she's been liking, I still think she can be locked in for this fight. So I like Katlyn Chookagian quite a bit. And again, she's one of those fighters. Is it going to be a pretty fight? Probably not, but she just knows how to win at the end of the day.
Comment over there. Araujo has to win. They just added her to UFC 4. Johnny Eduardo's got to fight. He's been in the last 3 UFC games. Johnny, where, yeah, Katlyn Chookagian opened minus 135. She's minus 140 right now. Viviane Araujo came in plus 115. She's a plus 116 right now. I scared the dog named Cheddar in the comments section, and 61% of the fans at Fight Night Picks have Katlyn Chookagian to win. 1,100 people tuning into Question Mark Kicks. This is the busiest episode we've had in some time. And Gun Ryu saying, yeah, you want to know about Chookagian's Twitter? Yikes. Mike Nelson saying, drop a like, guys. A lot of work goes into this. Give them credit. Well, I appreciate you. It is, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward to the Fight Companion later, because we have a lot of fun. We go in and out of the chat. We actually get to talk and react to some of these fights. But Matt, our co-main event. Tony Ferguson. Again, like I said, I mean, when I think of baseball players, I look in my mind and I think Mike Ford, Luke Voigt, Mitch Moreland. Like, there's a lot of just baseball guys. You see them out and about, and they're going to be driving a pickup truck. They're going to be playing baseball. And then when I look at Tony Ferguson, I think, man, this guy's either a guy that watched The Matrix 7 or 8 times in a row and then decided I'm wearing a leather jacket, biking gloves, and I'm going to be throwing a baseball around, or I'm one of the best fighters in the entire world. And Tony Ferguson gives off that aura. Holy smokes. Tony Ferguson, what a fighter. Now, he's been on a skid his last 2 times out, and he's gotten beaten at his own game in 2 separate ways. He's taking on Beneil Dariush, very well-rounded, but he's gotten his chin checked in the past. What do you make of this one?
This is an insanely fun fight. And for Tony Ferguson, again, I kind of said, he's been very Tony Ferguson-y this week, and that's a great sign, too. And I do think that can be attributed to the fact that there has been fans at all the press events. There's going to be fans in the fight. And I do think Tony Ferguson's going to be one of those fighters who, he's going to fight better because there's going to be a crowd. The last 2 times he's fought, there hasn't been any crowd. And if you know anything about Tony Ferguson, he's a guy who gets very amped up. And I see the comments, is Tony Ferguson washed? Maybe, but this is the fight that you're going to find out. Because with Beneil Dariush, you know what you're going to get with him every single time he fights, no matter what. With Beneil, he's a great southpaw. He's got that great body kick, great leg kick, as Craig goes off camera. He's just got so many great attacks from that southpaw position. And this is the thing I have to keep on asking myself when I think about Tony Ferguson. He can switch stances, and he's really good from both stances. But the problem with Tony Ferguson is that his orthodox position, he's going to be very open to that body kick and to the leg kick of Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush is great at going to the body, and I do think if he goes to the body early and often in this fight, yes, Tony Ferguson has great cardio, but this is only a 3-round fight. He's not going to be able to weaponize his cardio to the same effect as if this was a 5-round fight, so I have to go with Beneil Dariush at the end of the day. I was a little bit worried about the whole weight cutting, and did he miss, did he not? Maybe that will play a factor in this fight, but my last point is that the only negative I have about Beneil Dariush is that he's not the most durable guy on the roster. If you had a bad weight cut, it's going to make you less durable than I thought you would have been anyways. The fact that he's less durable than I already thought he was isn't that big of a negative. So I do think Dariush can be able to out-wrestle Tony. I think on the outside, he's going to be able to mess with Tony, especially in the boxing range. So at the end of the day, I'm going with Dariush, but I still think Tony Ferguson's going to have a lot of fun fights in the UFC.
A lot of people asking me what I was doing. All right, I'm a prop comic now. So are we going full baseball or are we going full boxing in this one? Because for Tony Ferguson, he's a guy that's been holding on to the baseball for so long, but now he's boxing, and it's not with Butterbean, but it's been with Freddie Roach for this one. And it's really interesting to see that coming out of wildcard boxing for this fight. And I like what I see out of Tony Ferguson during fight week, but it is tricky for me to go with him in this fight. I do have a hard time now. We have to acknowledge, Matt hit us up in the super chat earlier on. Matt Doherty said, what am I doing off screen? But listen, I'm ready to go. I absolutely love the fight. If I look at the line, it scares me because it's popping popcorn for most of this. But Beneil Dariush open a plus 105. He's a minus 156 right now. Tony Ferguson open a minus 125. He's a plus 130. And at Fight Night Picks, this one is deadlocked right down the center. It's even. But you've got Dariush here, right?
Okay, on a scale of washed, I think Tony Ferguson is like Karl Malone on the Lakers. Like, he's still okay. He's not winning MVPs anymore. He's still all right, but he's definitely coming off the bench. And I don't think that's the type of player who could beat Beneil Dariush. I think this is Beneil Dariush's time. I think he's probably the most well-rounded fighter in the top 5 right now. And I do think there's a lot of fun matchups in the future for him against those other guys in the top 5. So at the end of the day, I have to pick Beneil Dariush. But this fight is going to be absolutely insane.
Juan Gonzalez Diaz saying lame props. All right, Juan. I live in Canada. I got a Boston Red Sox foam finger and a Butterbean signed glove, but I do my best. All right, apparently Carrot Top is not going to work out for me. Matt, absolutely love it. Our main event at lightweight for the title. A lot of people were very critical because at the start of the week they said, boys, you're not giving Chandler a shine. You want shine for Michael Chandler? We're the guys. We are the guys. We do Bellator shows and nobody watches them, but we do them because we love them and we love the product. And for Bellator's former 3-time champ Michael Chandler, you focus on the losses. Well, Patricio Pitbull knocked him out, but Patricio Pitbull could knock out a small pony at any given point of the day, and he'd probably catch it off guard, but it could happen. Patricio's a great fighter. We'd love to see him in the UFC. Hell, I'd love to see him fight a Josh Emmett, or even a Volkanovski, or a Holloway. But you can't really get overly critical about Chandler in that fight. Did he get knocked out? Sure. But it's going to happen. Then you look at it before that. Ill Will twice. And then before that, he did have a loss, and yeah, he lost his belt. But Ill Will, good fighter when he was with Bellator.
He was okay, Craig.
Eddie Alvarez was pretty good as well. So, listen, Michael Chandler, apart from that, huge wins. Wins that you like to see, too. And, you look at the other loss that I didn't really talk about, the Brent Primus fight. That was one of those weird ones, almost like Anthony Smith when he was fighting Jim Crute. Sometimes you hurt your leg in a fight, and sometimes you can't continue on. So Chandler, good fighter, tons of power, great wrestling from the University of Missouri. Charles Oliveira, Swiss Army knife. Now, the big thing before I give it to you, and I see it in the comment section, so Elliot V shouts to you, Oliveira has quit in him. Yeah, but at 55, he's been on a huge run. He hasn't quit.
He quit. Yes, he did. He quit against Paul Felder at 55. He tapped out.
That was a long time ago.
But no, this is my problem. You can't say that was a long time ago. I do kind of have to side with the commenters, although I am ultimately going to pick Oliveira. This is my problem. Yes, he kind of quit in that Paul Felder fight, but I don't think we are dealing with the same fighter now. I think the fact that he has completely retooled his camp since that fight really does mean something. I think Charles Oliveira is just a completely different person, if anything. You watch his training now. It's completely built around his family. Like, his training partners are almost like his family now. He's completely integrated fighting as almost like his lifestyle now. And he was a guy who, yes, he was always great at grappling, but Charles Oliveira's striking was all right. I know he beast up Frankie Edgar back in the day, but it's not like you looked at Charles Oliveira's striking as this massive net positive, where now you don't want to stand on the feet with Charles Oliveira. He's got kicks. He's got these great long-range strikes that he can throw at you. Like, he's a very big problem. I just worry about Michael Chandler's durability at the end of the day, because durability isn't something you can control. At the end of the day, you can decide if you want to quit or not. you can't decide if you're just going to be durable all of a sudden. If that was the case, then Alistair Overeem would probably be undefeated. I just think Michael Chandler, when he does get hit, he tends to get wobbled. If you go back and look at the Goiti Yamauchi fight, yes, there was a weird crane kick. It probably would have caught anyone off guard, and it only stunned him momentarily. But if you're getting stunned by a guy like Goiti Yamauchi, who, yes, is a very good fighter, I think we probably like him maybe way too much, but still, a good fighter who's great on the ground. If Charles Oliveira hurts you at all, he's going to choke you unconscious. Like, there's not a single position on the ground that I think of Charles Oliveira at being strong as. Like, he's just kind of fluid throughout all of them. You've never seen a guy float in and out of positions like Charles Oliveira. So I do see him catching Michael Chandler with some kind of shot on the way in and then submitting him afterwards. The one guarantee I can have on this fight, and the one thing I'm pretty confident about, I don't see this fight going the distance no matter what. I do see Michael Chandler, if he can get the takedown and just ground and pound Charles Oliveira, he can win by knockout. He can knock Oliveira out on the feet, and Oliveira can knock out Chandler on the feet. I just don't see how these two guys, as dangerous as they are, can make it the whole 25 minutes without there being a finish.
Big arms over in the comments section. Why all nerds and dorks suddenly MMA experts? I mean, it says somewhere there, established in 2018. It's been a while, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Over in the comment section, though, a lot of people, Charles by guillotine, Charles this way, that way. And there are some comments as well with people saying Michael Chandler's never been submitted. And that's true. He's been finished, but he hasn't been submitted.
And he's great defensively, too.
And he is very good defensively. Again, we talked about it. I mean, Brent Primus, very high level jiu-jitsu. At one point, he had Chandler's back completely. And then Chandler was able to kind of withstand it, get out of the round. And then after that, Chandler was able to ultimately win out, beat Brent Primus on the ground, and absolutely be in position the entire time. So I love the fight. I mean, Matt, we both had Chandler to get the win over Dan Hooker.
We did.
This is a really tricky fight, though, for both guys.
It really is. And again, there's not many fights that are this split down the middle. I know you're going to get to our votes, and I'm assuming they're going to be close, but I remember when we were back predicting this fight, we looked at the Tapology votes. They're what, 51% Chandler, 49% Oliveira, or vice versa. Like, this is one of those fights that just, it doesn't really matter who you ask. Everyone's like, well, it's going to be close, and then they give you their prediction. No one's really firm on one side or the other. But again, at the end of the day, I like Charles Oliveira. I've seen like Kevin Lee completely ground and pound Charles Oliveira and him still be able to work to positive situations on the mat. And yes, Kevin Lee, he might be a little overrated. He might not be the best fighter, and he might not be like the second son that people had promised. But Kevin Lee's a really, really good grappler, and the fact that Charles Oliveira wasn't able to go out there and knock him out, he went out there and submitted him. I just think that means a lot, so I do have Oliveira.
Matt's got Oliveira. I have Oliveira as well. And Cloud saying, you tuned in when we only had 50 people tuning in. Now we have 1,000. Well, it's because of you, so we really do appreciate you. Now, Matt, like we said, we're going to go up and down through the entire card. One more time, we'll get the final picks. We appreciate everybody so far, about 1,200 tuning in. The like would really mean a lot to us. Matt, let's hop down through the entire thing. Our first fight on the card, Sean Soriano taking on Christos Giagos. I did switch it. I think Giagos probably going to get the decision here, but maybe you do like the value in Soriano like I did at the start of the week. He's about a plus 175 or thereabouts, but yeah, absolutely love this one.
Christos Giagos, again, it's weird because both guys have been cut from the UFC and they both made their returns from the UFC, but Giagos has definitely had the more successful, or at least the much longer second tenure. Like, he has been around for a little while now, and I do think he can go out there and beat top 25 guys. Maybe not top 15, but I do think there's that kind of buffer zone between, like, the elite fighters of the world and the guys who are just making their UFC debuts, and that's where Giagos sits, and I think that'll be enough to beat Soriano.
Should be a great one, both of us going with Giagos. Our next fight, Kevin Aguilar taking on the man himself, Tucker Lutz. Tricky one, asking for the FMP parlay. It comes up in a bit, but yeah, Lutz, Aguilar, really tough one. Both guys are really good at similar things, and Cody Keller saying, wait, aren't you guys forgetting something? Let's get into it. I don't know. Oh, Manscaped time? Yeah, the 4.0, it's in the mail. It's somewhere. We'll have it soon. But Tucker Lutz, Kevin Aguilar, great fight. Down at 45, I still like Aguilar in this one as an underdog, but it is a tricky one.
I like Aguilar as well, but again, don't put this on your card. Like, this is one of those really hard ones to predict. Aguilar's on a 3-fight losing streak for a reason. Again, you don't have 3-fight losing streaks and then win the title normally, so I do like Aguilar ever so slightly, but I do think Lutz would be able to win this.
Yeah, that's true. Isaac saying, didn't Soriano fight like 2 months ago, not in the UFC? He did, and he knocked out former UFC vet Noad Lahat, and Gun Ryu saying Soriano training with Chandler for this fight. He did. He's been with the gym in South Florida for a really, really long time. Daily Sam saying MMA math doesn't work. It rarely ever
This
does.
is the one thing about that fight. Everyone just glosses over it. They're like, oh, Will Brooks was good. He wasn't. Like, Will Brooks only has good win. It's just this is the thing. Sometimes people lose to people that they're better than. Like, Michael Johnson knocked out Dustin Poirier. Everyone has losses on their record that don't look very good in hindsight. Will Brooks isn't some world beater by any means. He just had Michael Chandler's number, and he's a bad matchup for him. I don't think we have to discredit Michael Chandler just because he lost to Will Brooks. Like, we have to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, Will Brooks looked good in those fights, but you can't put everything on that. It was a really late stoppage in the second one where Chandler took unnecessary damage, and I do think that second fight, you can kind of point to that stoppage to see why Chandler might not be so durable nowadays, but yeah, he still lost to Will Brooks. It doesn't mean that much, but him fighting Charles Oliveira, that's all.
All right, Matt, we'll move into the next one. Joshua hitting us up in the super chat saying Chandler, Oliveira's quitting him. Boys, oh boys. I mean, people quit and fight sometimes. George St. Pierre quitting a fight. Matt, Gina Mazany taking on Priscila Cachoeira, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but Priscila got a kiss on the old bald head there, and that was the strangest thing I've seen all week.
It was. Dana White's head. Pink? Dana Pink. That's what his name should have been. He was embarrassed about the situation, didn't know what to do. And it was weird all around. At the end of the day, I like Gina Mazany in this fight. I do. Priscilla's not a bad fighter by any means, and she's going to land a lot of clean shots on the feet. I really do think she will. I just think the wrestling Mazany is going to be overpowering at the end of the day. This isn't going to be a fight of the night. We left it off that list for a reason, but I do think Mazany is just the more well-rounded out of these two.
Tristan, over in the chat, I've seen you. I apologize for not acknowledging it, but you're here just about every week. And Ray Quinones is back. Ray's back.
What's up, Ray?
We both have Mazany in this one, Matt. Our next fight, Jordan Wright, Jamie Pickett. I had the under 2.5 at the start of the week, and I'm going with Jamie Pickett today. Absolutely love it. And to answer Anar's question saying when's it going to start, the fight's starting in about an hour. They do.
I also have Jamie Pickett. I just don't like the game of Jordan Wright all that much. And maybe he can go out there and really shock me and I'll have a completely different opinion of him moving forward. But the fact that he beat a lot of, I won't say cans because I feel in a wave is a decent win on your record, but he doesn't have great signature wins. And he looked awful against Joaquin Buckley, who's an okay fighter. I just don't think he's, that next tier of guy. So I also have Pickett in this one.
All right, Matt. Big Papa saying you love the picks. We move into our next one. We have Andrea Lee taking on Antonina Shevchenko. This one was a little back and forth. What are you saying here?
Andrea Lee knows how to win rounds, but I don't think that's going to be enough to beat Antonina Shevchenko. I just think her overall game is going to be enough to beat Lee. Maybe Lee can win a couple of rounds on the outside, just hitting her here and there, but I do like Shevchenko at the end of the day.
Yeah, I've got Shevchenko as well, but this is probably one of those fights. It's like neck and neck. It's pot and popcorn if I've ever seen one. So let's look at our next one. We have Lando Vannata taking on Mike Grundy. For everybody that's been asking, this is where the question mark kicks parlay kicks off. I've got Mike Grundy at a minus 115 to get the win over Vannata. Again, you talk about loving fights. Love this fight.
Oh, it's a really fun one. Lando Vannata, I thought was going to be a top 15 talent. Like, he was my original Jonathan Martinez, but at a certain point, you just have to come to a realization that the fighter might not be what you thought he was going to be. I think Mike Grundy wins this fight 10 times out of 10. I really do. I just think stylistically, this is such a tough matchup for Lando Vannata.
All right, Matt. We both have Grundy to get the win. Our next one, Jacare, Souza, Andrea Muniz. Just like Andrea Bargnani. But, yeah, I have such a hard time with this one. I do have Souza. Again, Muniz has that range, but does he really use it enough?
No.
Is he really the best striker? We'll see what happens. But yeah, I am ever so slightly going with the former Strikeforce champ, Jacare Souza.
I also have Jacare. It's a really hard ask to say, hey, is Andrea Muniz going to submit Jacare? I don't think so. I'll be very surprised if he does. So I do have Jacare at the end of the day.
All right, Matt, we move into our next one. Schnell, Bontarine. I've got Matt Schnell here.
Yes, so do I. I hate the fact that Bontarine missed weight. I have a bunch of tinfoil hat theories we can throw out there. I just don't think he had a good camp. I think if you get knocked out, and then you have a medical suspension that normally lasts longer than 2 months, which is weird that he's back so soon, but that's a story for another day. I don't know how much of a camp Bontarine had, and I already like Matt Schnell, so I do like Schnell quite a bit.
Scott Torgrenson, we appreciate you. And 619 Boxing, yikes, with the super chat. I did watch some of that SNL last weekend. It was bad. Shane Burgos taking on Edson Barboza. The second leg of the question mark kicks parlay. I've got Barboza plus 130. So if you add that to Grundy, you get a plus 330. I'm not putting much on it. I'm just going to sit back and really watch. But I do like Barboza with the overall game. But again, the weapon of cardio for Burgos, plus the pressure, maybe it'll cause Barboza some issues. We've seen Barboza get kind of pushed like that before and not have a good success, but I do like Barboza here.
I saw Edson Barboza stand at range with Anthony Pettis, who had just lost his title not that long ago, and the only way to beat Pettis up until that point was to wrestle him. Edson Barboza went out there and completely out-kickboxed him and made it not even close on the feet. And Anthony Pettis is A, good at checking leg kicks, and B, is also a really good kicker. Edson Barboza made it look like Anthony Pettis was terrible at kickboxing in that fight, and I do think this is going to be a very similar fight. I just think if you're a primary striker and you're asked to, hey, fight Edson Barboza, unless you dedicated 8 weeks of your training camp to wrestling and you can make this an MMA fight, it's just such a hard ass to go out there and outstrike Edson Barboza. You at the end of the day, people beat him. You can beat Edson. He has 9 losses. But you normally have to at least threaten with the takedown attempt. You can't just stand on the feet and beat this guy. I think this fight will be absurd for as long as it lasts, but I do have Barboza.
All right, Matt, we're both going with Barboza. Our next one, Chookagian, Araujo. Tricky one. But I'm going with, the chick that rocks the DMX every time out, not just on special occasions. I'm going with Katlyn Chookagian.
The one who doesn't rock NordVPN, because then her Twitter maybe wouldn't get hacked. Yeah, Katlyn Chookagian. I think she'll be able to get this win. She's a great fighter at winning rounds. And I know that's not a sexy way to win fights, but that's just what she does. She's good at winning rounds 1 through 3. I think she'll be able to get it done.
All right, Matt, we move into our next one. Ferguson, Dariush. And listen, we saw the legend last weekend in the co-main event on the losing streak lose against Alex Morono. Will that happen this time out? I'm ever so slightly going Dariush, but I can't wait for the fight.
This fight's going to be wild. This fight, again, fight of the night, all over the board. Tony Ferguson asked for $75,000 yesterday for the bigger bonus because he was like, hey, I'm probably going to at least get one tomorrow. So I do think this fight will be very good, but I've got Dariush.
Matt W saying, I ain't touching this fight. We got Matt, 1,200 people tuning in. I want to see 500 likes before we're out of here, and we're almost there.
Hit that thumbs up, guys.
All right, Matt, we move into our main event. Somebody's going to have Bush. We got Charles Oliveira do Bronx taking on Michael Chandler and Iron Mike. Listen, it was weird that Joe Rogan kept calling him Mike because he's been a lifelong Michael. Like Jim, James, what are we going with? He went with Mike. Lifelong Michael. Are you going with lifelong Michael? Or are you going with a guy that could go by Chuck but chooses to go by Charles?
I'm going to go Charlie Olives. I like Oliveira in this fight. Again, his ground game is so lethal. People need to start talking about this. He has that one-shot, one-kill jiu-jitsu. He really does. Where whenever you're on the mat with him, he out-grappled Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson. That should be enough for you to be like, hey, he's probably all right at grappling. He's also choked out who? Jim Miller, another guy who's good at grappling. Choked out other people as well. But no, Oliveira is not only
Nick
great
Lentz.
at Christos Giagos, who again is a good grappler. I'm just trying to highlight, Charles Oliveira is not a guy who just goes out there and submits kickboxers. Charles Oliveira submits guys who you think are good at grappling. That's the level that this guy is on in the mat, and I do think Michael Chandler's going to have to get a takedown at some point in this fight. So, ever so slightly picking Charles Oliveira, but this fight's going to be absolute fireworks.
Yeah, it should be an absolutely great fight. Chandler's never been submitted. Charlie Olives, UFC record 4 submissions, and listen, could we end up with a striking matchup? Could we end up with a first-round finish? Do you think it's going to end quick?
I just think it's going to end before the last bell. That's the only prediction I can really give you confidently. Because Michael Chandler, absurd knockout power, great power wrestling, great submission games and ground and pound. Not the most durable guy in the world. And then Charles Oliveira, we've seen him get finished before. But again, he is that guy who goes out there and searches for the finish himself. I like Charles Oliveira, but I do not see this fight going to the distance.
It should be an absolutely great fight, Matt. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. This is one of the busier episodes of Question Mark Kicks that we've had in a long time. So thank everyone. We're almost at 25,000 subs. Never thought that was going to be possible, but we're getting up there, so we do really appreciate you and all of the support over there in the chat. Can't wait for the fights. The Fight Companion starts 5 minutes before that main card, so we get primed and ready. But yeah, you're going to want to tune in with that. We'll chat with you in the comment section. We don't show the fights. We turn the commentary down. We offer up our own perspectives, and we do our best not to be too biased one side or the other. But Matt, absolutely love this card. Can't wait for it. And as we always say, with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt.